Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to another weekly astrology forecast for the week of September 1st through the 7th. This is such a big week and such a big month. But before I get into it, if you are interested in learning astrology and how to read your natal chart, because this is actually important to understand what the transits will mean for you. I am teaching a 12-week class on how to read your natal chart starting on Monday, October 6th. It's 12 weeks, 2 hours, once a week. We meet on every Monday. So if you're interested in learning from me, all the details will be down in the show notes down below. I do offer sliding scale and payment options for all of you who need that assistance. But we have such an amazing group of people so far. Like, I'm just honestly, like, I can't even believe the people that are going to be in this group. So again, if you are interested to learn how to read your natal chart, we're going to do a lot of practice charts. The transits will make more sense when you start to see how this will impact you personally. On a second note, if you're interested in supporting my work, I do have a Patreon, and I just finished working on the monthly forecast for each rising sign, and that's one of the bonuses you get at the beginning of each month. And so that is the North Node tier. And if you want to support this weekly astrology forecast, that is $5.55 per month. So that is also in the show notes as well. Thank you for all of your support so far. It's been an honor to be your astrologer. And yeah, let's get into it. So I have a couple of recap news that I just thought were so on brand with the astrology. Um, so last week, I mentioned that on August 25th, Mercury will be out of its shadow phase. So Mercury is leaving Leo, like it's moving past 15 degrees of Leo. So we are officially done with the Mercury retrograde story. And on August 27th, Venus in Leo was opposing Pluto in Aquarius. And I said I felt like there were going to be a lot more disclosures or like scandals that come out. And I found it interesting that on August 27th, a astrologer named Amy Tripp, her handle is Star Heel. And I recognized her from some of her videos that she posts on TikTok. She does a lot of like political predictions. And anyway, she is in a scandal with a Trump Pentagon official. So I feel like I'm spilling so much tea here, but apparently she got into an affair with this Trump Pentagon official. He was married, and this Pentagon official started to like follow her work. Essentially, she predicted a couple things that came true, and he started to invest in her company, in her astrology company. So there are some politicians out there who do believe in astrology, by the way. This is my proof. This is what I've been saying like every single week. Now, when he decided that he was not going to leave his wife for her, this is when Amy Tripp started crashing out. And apparently, the story became public on August 27th, which was the day that Venus in Leo was opposing Pluto in Aquarius. So that is very, very Venus opposite Pluto energy. It's like this famous astrologer getting into this legal battle with this authoritarian figure in Trump's administration. If you want to read more about it, by the way, The Cut, I believe, just published an article about it, but I felt like that was pretty on brand. And then on the same day, a journalist named Taylor Lorenz published an article with The Wire about a dark money group funding influencers. Now, I was interviewed by Taylor Lorenz in the fall of 2023 when my TikTok account got banned because I was speaking out about Palestine. I did a video about AIPAC, and then the very next day, my account was gone. No warning, no, they give you 3 warnings before they ban your account, but I got no warning. They didn't give me a chance to even save my data. They're just like, goodbye. And she was doing this article about that, but she never published it because I don't think she had enough. She didn't have enough, I guess, stories or she's an investigative journalist. So that's how I know Taylor Lorenz, and she is a reporter. This story has been getting it's been like so divisive for so many people, but this is also very like Mercury out of its shadow, Venus and Leo opposing the status quo, right? Pluto and Aquarius. And I think what's interesting is that it's not a question whether content creators should be getting paid. It's more of a question of first, like, these content creators, right, are becoming like journalists and journalists who cover politics. They're starting to blend these two together. Now, when you're a content creator, you don't always have to disclose where your money comes from. And these people were getting paid like 8 grand a month, okay, by a dark money group. I believe the fund is called 1630. And they were paid to speak about the Democrats in a positive light. And they weren't allowed to talk about some topics like Gaza and about the genocide. So, journalists, however, are not allowed to receive gifts or, I guess, like funds to, because that is I mean, I think it's really clear, like journalists aren't allowed to receive gifts or funding because they're supposed to be unbiased, right? Which we all know they're not. We all know Western journalists are not covering what's happening in Gaza. And so it's kind of like, are you a content creator or are you a journalist at this point? And so I think the problem is if you are a journalist and you are not reporting on what's happening in Palestine and you are promoting Democrats, then that is a conflict of interest. If you are a content creator, I think that's a different story. I think they don't have to disclose where this money comes from. But anyway, there was a lot of this back and forth online, but I thought that was so mercurial out of its shadow, Mercury out of its shadow. I thought that was so Venus in Leo, which people are coming after Taylor now, opposing Pluto and Aquarius. And whatever you feel about Taylor Lorenz personally, she is a reputable journalist. And The Wire, I think it's called The Wire or Wired, wouldn't have, and I know we have a lot of skepticism now about Western media, right? And these news outlets, but I don't think they would have published this without having enough proof. Um, Now, another thing that was interesting, September 28th, Neptune retrograde in Aries was sextile Uranus in Gemini. And this weekend, there were all these rumors about Trump being dead. And people online were noticing that the photos that they were releasing of him were old photos. And I thought that was also interesting. Like Neptune not knowing like what news is fake and what they're really showing us on social media. And I think we're going to have to deal with this a lot more as Uranus is going into Gemini. How we receive information and how we receive news, who we can trust, all of these things. And on August 31st, for third, it's the first quarter moon in Sagittarius, and the global Samud flotilla left Barcelona today. And I thought that was also very first quarter moon in Sag. This is also very Neptune retrograde in Aries, sextile Uranus in Gemini. I've spoken about the flotillas since June, and I've just been tracking the astrology, and I think it is so interesting the dates that they pick. I know they can't control all the situations because there's multiple variables that are in play here, but I'm like, you gotta hire an astrologer to elect an auspicious time. There are like I'm learning lunar mansions right now, and there are specific dates and times you can pick that protect people on boats that are traveling over the sea. There are dates and times you could pick that protect people who are going to a besieged place, for example, because this is what they used in ancient astrology. They used it for wartime, for moments of having to protect themselves from sieges and all that stuff. So anyway, that was the recap. Now we're going into September, and September is very busy. And I have to say, like, the best way to get through September is to try to regulate your nervous system, try to spend as much time grounding yourself and doing whatever practices you need to do, because 5 planets are changing signs this month and it's eclipse season. So it's going to feel like a lot is happening all at once. And I feel like time is going to feel like it's going to go by really fast. Mercury will go from Virgo to Libra. Venus will go from Leo to Virgo. Mars will go from Libra to Scorpio. The sun will go from Virgo to Libra, and that is the equinox. And Saturn will go from Aries to Pisces. So 5 planets are changing signs this month. And so you want to look at your Virgo and Libra houses, obviously, for the month of September. And also, Virgo season is a concentration on the Virgo and Libra real estate of your chart, but also your Pisces house because of the eclipses. So, again, like I go through all of this in depth through each rising sign, like what areas of your life, what you could be going through, what changes might be afoot for each of your rising signs. But anyway, in a broader scale, I think for a lot of people, there are going to be endings and beginnings that a lot of people might not anticipate. And so, what I like to remind people is that not all of these transits will impact you personally. And also, because the North Node is in Pisces, oftentimes when eclipses happen, you have to trust in the fact that whatever is trying to like leave, exit left from your life, this is the old version of you, like the old life that you're trying to leave behind. And so people, jobs, situations in your life that you manifested at that vibration might leave your life because you are no longer that person. That old version of you is trying to decompose and die. And so with the North Node in Pisces, it's asking us to have faith and believe in the divinity within each and every one of us, that if we connect to that part of ourselves that is infinite, that is omnipresent, and is connected to everything, and that time actually is not linear, we can tap into those timelines where, oh, we've already done that thing. We're already on the path. And as much as this time might be scary and it might be uncertain for a lot of people, I feel like most of you who watch me and follow me know that this is the change that some of y'all been praying for. This is the change that some of you have been waiting for. Of course, like when you lose a job, when you go through a breakup, or you go through all these like massive life changes, it's never easy because you want it to be on your terms and you want to be ready. But this month might be that moment where the universe is like, you're ready. You're just like, ah. So, a lot of us have to become the people that we've never been before in order for the change that we've been praying for to come. So that's something to keep in mind. So let's start on September 1st, right off the bat on Monday. Saturn retrograde re-enters Pisces. And so this will bring you back to May 24th when Saturn entered Aries. Saturn has been spending 3 years in your Pisces house. And so Saturn wants 3 things from you. Saturn wants a plan, Saturn wants structure, and Saturn wants discipline. And so whatever you started to do in your Pisces area of your life, this is like the final chapter. This is the final moment where you're like, okay, we're we're locking in, we're getting serious, we're going to work on this thing, and then next year Saturn will go back to into Aries, and you will like not have to think about that area of your life anymore. But yeah, think back to May when Saturn changed signs and you're kind of like leaving off in that area. Um and you're going to be focused in this area of your life too, just because of the eclipses happening here. You know, it's you're getting serious about this. On September 2nd, Mercury will ingress into Virgo, and the very next day, Mercury will square Uranus in Gemini at 1 degree. So, Mercury in Virgo is a lovely transit because Mercury has its domicile and exaltation in the sign of Virgo. Mercury rules things like commerce, communication. It is the planet of astrologers. So, that's why I'm launching my course. I'm like going to push it even more in the month of September. And yeah, this is a Mercury that takes thoughts into and ideas into the material realm. This is taking the like theory and thoughts and ideas into the physical reality, putting things into practice. Now, when Mercury in Virgo squares Uranus in Gemini, this is a day where you might have unexpected aha moments, epiphanies. Mercury in Virgo is very detail oriented. It is very strategic and it plans and it's very practical. But Uranus in Gemini is a little chaotic. It will want you to disrupt that area of your life. And so some ideas that you might be having might be contested with that Uranus and Gemini. Like Uranus and Gemini is like, no, this needs to be more innovative. This needs to be more disruptive. This needs to change. This needs to be more revolutionary. And Mercury in Virgo is like, we need a plan. We need to make sure that this is strategic enough. So there is some tension between your Virgo and your Gemini house. However, I do think that back in that new moon we had on August 21st, when the new moon was square Uranus, I do think that some new thing is emerging in your Virgo area of your life. And also, like I said, there's going to be a solar eclipse here in your Virgo house. And so something is like being asked to be a little bit like thinking outside the box. I'll say that. On September 4th, Mars in Libra will square Jupiter in Cancer at 18 degrees. Now, this is sort of a difficult transit. However, Jupiter is exalted in Cancer and Jupiter is in an overcoming square to Mars. So it does have more dignity. Now, Mars in Libra in its conscious form is it's making peace. It's like, I don't want to disrupt the peace, so I'm just going to agree to what everyone is doing. Mars in Libra is like, I'm going to fight for justice. I'm going to fight for what's right. Now, Mars in Libra is also said to be in its detriment because Mars can't do the thing that Mars wants to do, which is which is take action. It's conflict. It's being more assertive and aggressive. But I think that Mars in Libra square Jupiter in Cancer is, it could be this energy of like, we need to take action that is more in alignment with care, and we're going to need to take action that is different from the way we've been doing things. Just because Jupiter in Cancer, like I said, has more dignity here, it is in its exaltation, and Jupiter in Cancer wants to expand. Jupiter in Cancer is like community care and nurturing, and let's expand our optimism and capacity for collective liberation. And again, used in a conscious way, Mars and Libra can be like, let's fight for justice. And I'm just thinking about September 4th, which I believe the global Samud flotilla is leaving from Tunisia. So that is that has potential, obviously, for some conflict or coming up against some friction with people. or a certain occupying force. But I do think that is a good way to use this energy. It's like, let us all come together and be really active in trying to fight for justice. But I would be careful of that day, like I said, because it is Mars is a detriment. Yeah. Okay. On September 5th, there will be after 5 p.m. a 19-hour void of course moon, and I like to make this. I like to like warn you about long void of course moons because this isn't a day to like launch things or announce a business offering or launch something new. This is a time when you can relax and rest, hang out with people that you know, visit friends, visit family. But I just wanted to make you aware of that long ass void of course moon on September 5th. On September 6th, Uranus will station retrograde at 1 degree. So think back to what Uranus and Gemini, the transit has been for you since not September, July 7th, I believe. So July, August, September, it has been like 2 months ish of Uranus starting its little change, its little revolution in your Gemini house. And now it's going retrograde. So now you're reflecting on all of these things. On the same day, around 11:54 a.m., the moon will enter Pisces. And so we are officially in this eclipse moment here. On September 7th, there is a total solar eclipse in Pisces. And I'm actually going to show you the chart so we can look at it together. All right. I've been filming videos all week and all day. So I'm like a little delulu right now. I just finished the 12 horoscopes for September. But anyway, so here's the sun conjunct the south node. So the eclipses happen around the nodes and it's at 15 degrees because we are still in Virgo season. And here we have Pisces, the Pisces moon, and the North Node. The ruler of this lunation is Jupiter in Cancer, which I love. Jupiter in Cancer is here. And so this is a full moon. This is a release. This is an ending. Something is ending between your Virgo and Pisces house. Oftentimes with eclipses, this can deal with relationships. And if you think about our lives, everything is based on a relationship. This could be a romantic relationship, a friendship, a business partnership. Something is ending in this area of your life. Okay. However, like I said, if you can surrender to this ending, this is a North Node eclipse here with the moon. The North Node is this increasing factor, this increasing energy. Something is wanting to be made manifest in this physical realm. And the South Node is a releasing energy, purging, cleansing. The moon is ruled by that Jupiter in its exaltation in Cancer. That's lovely. That's very supportive. And the moon and Jupiter have mutual reception. What that means is that the moon is being ruled by that Jupiter and Jupiter is being ruled by that moon. When you have planets that are in mutual reception, the topics of those houses and those two planets are speaking to each other in a harmonious way. So you also want to look at your Cancer house as well, because there's added support here. Saturn is co-present here. So again, there's some like Saturnian influence here. Saturn is also the planet of restriction and also death. Like, to be honest with you, Saturn is the Grim Reaper. So something is ending. Like I said, the more you can surrender and trust and have faith, it's very Pisces, right? Very Jupiterian. that whatever else is meant to come through, you're making space for, because this old version of you is dying, is it's over. That vibration you were at was keeping you at that state. And now what is being asked of you is to grow in some capacity. So that is the lunar eclipse in Pisces that happens on September 7th. Again, this happens at 2:08 p.m. Eastern time. Adjust for your time zone at 15 degrees of Pisces. In tarot, this is the 9 of Cups. So there is some wish fulfillment here. Um, Even though, like I said, this is a full moon, something is ending, something is being released, something's like um and then later on in the month, which I won't get too far into because we'll cover that in the next couple of weeks in your weekly forecast, that solar eclipse in Virgo at the end of the month is a little bit more challenging. So I feel like for a lot of people, we're going to have to really dig deep into our spiritual practice. We're going to have to ground into this reality, South Node in Virgo, right? Through the intelligence of our body and our embodiment, what we are meant to be doing in this incarnation. So, like always, thank you so much for your continued support. I appreciate y'all so much. I will see you next week. Bye.